We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to Connecticut.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Tuesday morning edition, Air Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Air Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. It's Tuesday. It's the middle of the week, but darn it, in this October, November, these next couple weeks are going to be insane. We got ourselves a jam-packed show. By the way, shout out to Luke, who is officially a Torres superfan, signing up for our membership platform. You can go ahead and do that as well if you want to support the show. $4.99 a month. Luke, we appreciate your support. Got to shout you out right off the top. Tell you what, this news cycle ain't slowing down, okay? Monster show today. Here's what we're going to discuss. We're going to open. Lane Kiffin thought he gave some very interesting comments on Monday about what his future could entail, where he will end up. We know he's the number one candidate at LSU, at Florida. What about Ole Miss? We'll discuss all that. From there, the Mark Stoops stuff just keeps picking up steam. Kentucky loses again in embarrassing fashion to Tennessee. Not only do I not think it's going to – do I think he's going to be the head coach next year at this point? I think we're coming towards a screeching halt. Interesting sound from yesterday that you got to hear. Then we will wrap. It is college hoops exhibition season, and Arkansas, man, they put a licking on Memphis on Monday night. We're going to discuss that game. This is John. Listen, Luke said it in the chat. This is one of John Calipari's best teams, maybe the best team he's had since 2015, when, of course, they made a Final Four. So we have a lot to talk about. There was other exhibition stuff, by the way. I finally got to go back and watch Duke, Tennessee. Was going to watch it. Then Brian Kelly got fired on Sunday night. So a lot to get to, a lot to discuss. By the way, if you missed last night, we did have John Summerall, Tulane head football coach, on the show. We talked about that dream season that Tulane is in the midst of and how he's handling things as his name is linked to the LSU job, the Auburn job, the Kentucky job. I know not all of them are open, but John Summerall did join us just yesterday, so make sure to check it out. But if you didn't check it out, it means maybe because you're not subscribed to the Aaron Torres pod. What are you doing at this point? If you're not subscribed to the show, YouTube, make sure to do so, okay? We just closed 64,000 subscribers. I think with the way we're pumping out content, we can get to 65,000 by the end of the week. We're on the road to 70K. We're on the road to 100K, but we cannot do it without your support. So make sure you're subscribed. If you have any friends that love college sports, tell them all about Torres. And if you like listening on podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, we really do appreciate your support. Speaking of support, you know who else's support we appreciate? Our friends and the official ticketing partner of the Aaron Torres pod and all things Aaron Torres Media, SeatGeek and the SeatGeek app. Okay, so it's that time of year. Maybe you're a Kentucky fan and you're fired up because football's almost done, but basketball's just beginning. You need tickets to that. Maybe you're an Arkansas fan that's ready to go watch the Hogs at Bud Walton Arena or in Dallas or in Chicago or wherever you may watch them. Maybe you're a football fan whose team is still awesome and you need tickets. Bottom line is, whatever you need tickets for is what you need to do. You need to use our friends at SeatGeek, okay? It is America's #1 ticketing app, over 28 million downloads. And what I love about SeatGeek, I've told you many things, but two things stand out. One, they let you know if the ticket is good. Every ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, green dot or red dot. Green dot means you go ahead and purchase. Red dot means maybe you want to stay away from that one. But just as importantly, you know why I really love SeatGeek? They take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. So how about this? If you use the SeatGeek app, download the SeatGeek app. If you use promo code Torres, that's promo code TORRES, you get $20 off your first purchase. By the way, that applies to any ticket, any show, any concert. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be college football. It doesn't have to be college basketball. I got a buddy who bought some Backstreet Boys tickets the other night. So SeatGeek.com, use promo code Torres, any game, any show. By the way, maybe you try to go to the World Series. By the way, Torres was up until 2 a.m. Eastern time watching the World Series last night. That's another conversation for another day. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, SeatGeek.com. Promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. With that said, listen, I lead every show by saying it's a busy Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whenever we're recording. But these last few weeks, it really has been busy. So it is a busy Tuesday morning in the world of college sports. There is no more time to waste. So, folks, let's not waste any more time. Let's get to the topic of the day. The topic of the day. What is that noise you hear in the background? Yeah, it is the coaching carousel spinning violently out of control. Okay, well, when all these jobs started opening up, UCLA, Virginia Tech, we didn't know where it was going. We thought Florida maybe could open up at some point, but nobody saw Penn State opening up in the manner that it did. And I'll be honest, I mean, even when I got off air on Sunday, I didn't think Brian Kelly was going to get fired. Crazy side story, but I was out to lunch, a late lunch with family, celebrating a birthday, kind of monitoring my phone, and you could just feel that thing picking up momentum. By the end of the day on Sunday, Brian Kelly was out at LSU. By the way, how did Brian Kelly spend his first day of being fired with that $53 million buyout? Yeah, he basically showed up at what is the equivalent of a Baton Rouge Chili's. The restaurant is called Superior Grill. Shout out to Talkin' Tigers podcast, who caught Brian Kelly out in the wild. Brian Kelly, with that $53 million buyout, I was told he enjoyed a fajita and a beer. But Brian Kelly, he may be done. But the question now becomes, what comes next at LSU? And I think more importantly, what comes next with all of these jobs? And maybe even more important than that, what is next for the guy on this screen right here? If you're listening on podcast, not watching on YouTube, I am talking about Lane Kiffin. And the Lane Kiffin story arc, I know they just did a documentary on him on ESPN. They're going to have to do another 2 or 3 because it is insane to me. This was a guy that was fired by the Oakland Raiders at 32-33, fired on a tarmac at USC. You could argue that's maybe the most famous firing in the history of firings. Now this guy is the belle of the ball in every manner in which a coach can be, right? He is on the verge of leading Ole Miss to the college football playoff. He is, I think you can say, listen, I'm not a Ole Miss football historian. He's maybe the best coach they've already ever had, and he's only in year 5, year 6, whatever. But we also know that he is the number 1 candidate at Florida, that he makes a lot of sense for Florida. And also now with LSU open, you got to assume he is the number 1 candidate for LSU as well. And so the big question becomes, what does Lane Kiffin want? I mean, this is a guy that a decade ago was not wanted, and now you fast forward, and he is the hottest coaching candidate on the market. I was thinking about this. I think it feels pretty comfortable to say that Lane Kiffin will probably be the highest paid coach in college football next year, if not top 2, top 3. I think the question just becomes where. Does he get a massive raise at Ole Miss, or does he use Florida and LSU to get him that raise, or does he just take the Florida or LSU jobs? So it's fascinating. By the way, I mean, he could choose Penn State. He could choose whatever. I don't know where he would end up, but I'm just saying wherever he ends up, I think he is going to be the highest paid coach in college football. With that said, did think we got a little bit of semi-interesting insight into Lane Kiffin's future on Monday, and he joined the Pat McAfee show. And I thought it was interesting because I could be wrong on this, and Ole Miss fans, correct me in the chat, correct me in the comment section, put Torres in his place, okay? I don't remember Kiffin doing a ton of media during the season, and I know McAfee has good relationships with all these guys, but I've seen Matt Rule on McAfee a bunch. I've seen Kurt Cignetti on McAfee a bunch. I don't know that I've seen Lane Kiffin on a bunch, okay? And so the interview kind of was intriguing to me. And I think it came at an intriguing time where Lane Kiffin's name is pretty much everywhere. And so I perceived it as Lane Kiffin is going on, 1, because he's excited about his football team, but 2, to set the record straight on what he is looking for next season, whether it is, another job at Ole Miss, whatever. So he went on McAfee, very interesting interview, but there was one soundbite that did make the rounds on social media. It was Pat McAfee kind of asking about raises and this and that, and Lane Kiffin with some very interesting comments on what he is and is not looking for from his employer. Play the sound, Matt.
Pat said there, just so you know, because you haven't known me very long, Pat. I have never made a decision based off of money, nor will I. And
Love that.
For a lot of people, they're just like, well, money and it does this and does that. I've seen too many examples in life where money does not buy happiness. So I am never going to make a decision off of money, nor do I care about it. And
it's good to have.
Jimmy Sexton gets really mad when I say that.
He's got enough.
We got to get this. We got to get this. And I'm like, Jimmy, I don't care. And he goes, I do.
He said, that's why I'm here. Of course. That is why I'm here.
Funny comments from Lane Kiffin saying, I've never made a decision about money and I never will. And of course, Jimmy Sexton, his agent, says, well, you should. I'm here to get you the most money you possibly can. Now, I think it's worth noting because I saw some pushback on this interview. And I do think there is a note on this. One, money doesn't buy happiness, all that. But two, there is a note about what I just said. Maybe money doesn't matter to Lane Kiffin because he knows no matter where he is going to get paid. So if he was I can't think of a school, but if he was the Boston College coach, right, and he was having this success, I do think there is a threshold that an LSU, Florida, and Ole Miss, whatever, could offer that Boston College couldn't match. So maybe there is nothing to this because of the fact that he's going to get paid wherever he ends up. But I would actually do the counter. I actually do think this is a significant quote, and I'll tell you why. I think it's a significant quote more because of the context of where it came on the Pat McAfee show on one of the biggest sports media platforms that we have. And when I look at this situation and when I look at Lane Kiffin choosing to do this interview with Pat McAfee, I actually think in a weird way, and maybe I'm crazy, I think this is kind of a positive if you're an Ole Miss fan, okay? Because when you look at Lane Kiffin, listen, here's the bottom line. I was thinking about this, is that when you're a coach and your name is linked in this job market, there's two reasons that you do an interview like this. Now, you could just do it to promote your school, because I know what people are going to push back on. Oh, Torres, you had John Summerall on your show yesterday. It's like, if you listen to the interview, John Summerall is completely focused on going 1-0 this week against UTSA. I don't think he took the interview. Even though his name is linked to other jobs, I don't think he took the interview. I think he took the interview because he has a chance to make the college football freaking playoff at Tulane, and he wants America to know about his team, okay? But at the same time, I just bring it up for this reason. I do think there are two reasons that a guy like Lane Kiffin would take this interview. One, it is to promote himself for other jobs. Or two, it's to kind of set the record straight that I don't really need promotion and I'm happy with where I'm at. And I think if you're an Ole Miss fan, it's a positive because I think this interview was much more to quiet the noise rather than stir it up. Let me give you kind of a random example, but I think I referenced this the other day. I remember 2021, okay? So that was the year that that was the last coaching carousel that was anything like this. That was the year that week 2, USC fires Clay Helton, LSU fires Ed Orgeron, also Miami, Florida, Oklahoma, Notre Dame all open up in the same year, okay? But what I vividly remember, that year, you're going to laugh, but you know who was the hot group of 5 candidate that season? It was Billy Napier, who at the time was at University of Louisiana. Louisiana Lafayette is what it used to be called. And I remember Billy Napier did no media. Now, in hindsight, it's maybe because he's not very good in front of a microphone and he's kind of boring, but whatever. But I bring it up because I vividly remember that year. All of a sudden, the LSU job opens up in mid to late October, whatever. And all of a sudden, I start hearing Billy Napier on all of these LSU-centric shows that kind of cover LSU, but you can kind of argue they're not LSU-focused, whatever. I remember at the time, Jordy Collada was the big Jordy may still do a show. Jordy was always nice to me, so I'm not trying to be disrespectful. But I remember Jordy Collada did a show at the time, and it was the big LSU show. All of a sudden, Billy Napier just starts showing up every single week. And it's oh, this is pretty clear that he is trying to endear himself to LSU fans and trying to get the LSU job. Now, I didn't get it. He got Florida. Doesn't really matter. But it was clear what he was trying to do. Well, with Lane Kiffin, he doesn't need any promotion. He doesn't need to go on Pat McAfee to pitch himself as the next Florida coach or the next LSU coach. It's actually the opposite. He is in complete control of both of those searches, and if he is interested in one or the other or neither, he can dictate that behind the scenes. And so I actually think he took this Pat McAfee interview to maybe quiet the noise a little bit, to kind of say, guys, I got a really good football team, and I'm focused on that, and you guys can talk about whatever you want, but I'm trying to win games and get to the college football playoff. And that kind of actually brings me to my next point, because I have noticed the rest of the media, and I'm not criticizing the rest of the media, but they're starting to catch up on a topic that we started talking about really last week, and then certainly on Sunday's show, is that what might be the biggest hindrance from either LSU getting Lane Kiffin as its next head coach or Florida getting Lane Kiffin as its next head coach? You know what the biggest hindrance is? Ole Miss keeps losing games. And Florida got a gut punch when the LSU job opened, but I think Florida got a bigger gut punch when, guess what? When Ole Miss beat Oklahoma on Saturday. And so when you look at the way this season is shaping up, the biggest hindrance to Lane Kiffin being anything other than the Ole Miss head coach next year is the idea that he could be coaching Ole Miss deep into the winter, well past when the coaching carousel comes to an end. And so to give everybody a little bit of context, everybody's season is going to end Thanksgiving weekend. Thanksgiving's a little late this year. I think it's November 27th, 28th, something like that, whatever. But most team season is going to end that weekend. Then the following weekend is conference championship week. Then right after that is the National Signing Day for high school players. And then the college football playoff doesn't start until the third weekend in December. So we have conference championship weekend, then a weekend off, then the first round of the college football playoff. And if you get a bye, you don't basically play until January 1st or December 31st, New Year's Eve. And so all of a sudden you start looking at Lane Kiffin, you start looking at Ole Miss, look at the schedule. Them beating Oklahoma, I think kind of unofficially punched a college football playoff ticket for them, because you look at the schedule. They're 7-1 through 8 games right now. Here are their final 4 games. I was holding up 3 fingers if you're watching on YouTube, but here are their final 4 games. Final 4 games. South Carolina at home this weekend. Then you get the Citadel at home this weekend. I'm not super familiar with their 2 deep, but I think Ole Miss will be favored in that game. Then you get Florida at home, interim head coach. Then you get a bye, and you do go to Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. And the question becomes, if you finish this season with 1 loss or even a second loss, you're still making the college football playoff. So essentially, you are not going to miss the college football play. You would have to go 2-2 against a schedule that is South Carolina at home, Florida at home, Citadel at home, at Mississippi State. You would have to go 2-2 against that schedule to play yourself out of the college football playoff, and that just almost certainly is not happening. And so if it doesn't happen, Lane Kiffin won't be available till the earliest, probably, the third week of December, and then potentially the first week of January. And so all of a sudden you sit there and say, he just might not be available as well. And I've seen, like I said, a bunch of media finally talking about this. I saw Dan Wetzel do an article early on Tuesday, but I thought the way it was articulated best. I swear to God, this guy, John Talty, if you watch this show, bro, I owe you some commission on this show. What do they call it? Residuals? Like when Friends plays, Jennifer Aniston gets a check for whatever. John Talty deserves a check, deserves residuals, because I reference his work a lot. But he's doing great work at CBS Sports. Call me John Talty. Call me baby. And he did a big article about this whole situation on Monday. This part really caught my attention, really framing, I thought, pretty well what I'm talking about. Matt, you can pop it up. Okay. So this is John Talty, CBS, says, would a program like Florida or LSU be willing to wait until after a coach is done with the college football playoff? No school was willing to do it a year ago, and there is considerable skepticism from industry sources CBS Sports has talked to that any school would want to unless it's truly unavoidable. High-profile coaching hires are already stressful affairs with a lot of proverbial cooks trying to get into the kitchen to sway a decision. This continues. Now, imagine the pressure an athletic director would be under trying to manage boosters, university decision makers, and reporters for more than a month after the regular season ends. And unless you are absolutely confident that your target is coming no matter what, you'd risk missing out on other top candidates in what is going to be a feeding frenzy for a candidate pool that doesn't seem capable of supporting all the jobs that will come open. That was via John Talty, again, CBS Sports. Beautifully articulated, because that is the game. It's going to, if you want Lane Kiffin, and if he makes the college football playoff, it is a crazy game of Russian roulette that you have to play if you think you can actually get him. Is that, again, your season is going to end around Thanksgiving. You now have to wait until probably a month after your regular season ends to even talk to Lane Kiffin because he's going to be busy coaching his team. And so, John Talty lays it out well, is there's two huge variables that come into play there. One is that you're going to miss out on everybody else, right? So let's just say you're Florida, okay? And I think I don't think Marcus Freeman's really a candidate. So let's say Marcus Freeman isn't a candidate. I think we all kind of think Lane Kiffin and Eli Drinkwitz are, Lane Kiffin maybe, Eli Drinkwitz probably would take the job. And we can debate whether Eli Drinkwitz is the right candidate or not. I'm not here to debate how he would do at Florida. But if you try and wait on Lane Kiffin until the middle of December, Eli Drinkwitz is not waiting for Lane Kiffin to say no. Eli Drinkwitz is going to either A, take another job, maybe Penn State, maybe somewhere else, or B, use these openings to leverage Missouri for a lot more money than he's already making. And so I'm just using Eli Drinkwitz as an example. Maybe he's super happy at Missouri and maybe he signs a contract extension before the end of the show. I don't know. But what I'm just saying is you basically put yourself in position to get nobody if you wait on Lane Kiffin. And then I thought the other interesting point on John Talty is imagine being an AD and having to fight off, forget the boosters, just reporters. You don't think that thing's going to leak? You don't think you're going to get questions everywhere you go? You think in a place like Baton Rouge in Florida or Gainesville, they're not going to stake out your house and try to figure out what the heck is going on? It's December 11th and we don't have a head coach. And so this is going to be a fascinating thing. And I'll be honest, everybody talks about, would Lane Kiffin prefer LSU over Florida? I don't know if it's going to come down to that. I just don't think you can wait until December 22nd, 23rd, 24th to hire a head football coach. Now, the counter to that is that if LSU or Florida doesn't have a head coach by December 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, and Ole Miss is in the playoff, then you got to feel pretty good that Lane Kiffin has verbally kind of quietly behind the scenes agreed to be the next head coach, right? Because I don't think a school can wait. But if it goes super quiet and there is no candidate that's coming to the forefront, then that probably means they've agreed to something behind the scenes with Lane Kiffin. So will it happen? I don't know. None of us do. I don't even think Lane Kiffin knows right now. But what I will say is if he does down the back half of the stretch what we all think he's going to do, I don't think Florida and LSU can wait. I just don't. But then again, like I said, the SEC championship game, I believe, is December 6th. Not only SEC, but all of the conference championship games. Assuming Ole Miss makes the playoff, which I think they will, the bracket will come out December 7th. If LSU, if Florida, if whoever doesn't have a coach in place by December 9th, 10th, whatever, I think it's safe to say they feel pretty good about getting Lane Kiffin. I just don't know that you can wait without a guarantee. And I don't know how you get a guarantee when this guy is coaching a potential playoff team. So absolutely fascinating. Pay attention to that because there is going to be a lot of moving parts in that conversation. All right, I'll tell you what. That's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about another coach that could be on the move in the SEC, but certainly not for the same reasons as Lane Kiffin. Mark Stoops, Kentucky. Some interesting new intel comes out about Mark Stoops. We'll discuss that next. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Auburn fans, we already know the freeze warning has hit the plains. Make sure to get your freeze warning t-shirts. Also, Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, If you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. All right, back. Good to be back. So, Matt, I'm doing a bad job here. Do we get any interesting comments on Lane Kiffin before we move on to an interesting development in Lexington with Mark Stoops? See if we got anything interesting. Luke says, but you have to wonder if some of these schools will stick with the devil they know over firing their coach and getting involved with this year's crazy cycle. Tell you what, perfect segue, Luke. Luke, are you, producer Matt, did you take off the rest of the day and just let Luke produce this show? Because that is a perfect segue to our next topic of conversation, where I don't think the coaching carousel is done spinning in the SEC. We know that LSU is open. We know that Florida is open. We know that Arkansas is open. And I'll be honest, first of all, I just think this week Kentucky plays at Auburn. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that for both coaches, this game is absolutely must win. For both coaches, a loss here, I think, unofficially ends their tenure at their school. And certainly, I don't think it necessarily means it's going to happen the day after the game. I think Mark Stoops might get until the end of the season, Hugh Freeze, whatever. But I just bring it up to say it is a very interesting game with two coaches whose positions are very precarious. And in the case of this show, we are going to talk Mark Stoops and the Kentucky Wildcats. Okay, so Kentucky, it's bad. We all know it's bad. And the one thing that I would say about Kentucky is this, is I actually think it's actually much worse than most people on the outside realize. Kentucky fans, this is no disrespect, okay? But I think there's this perception of, the team historically has not been great. So if you're sitting there, you look at the win-loss record and they're 3-4, they're 3-5. Well, how bad could it really be? Oh no, it is really toxic. Okay. So we've talked about Kentucky, I think probably more than any national show. And there's obvious reasons why. We have a lot of listeners in Kentucky, whatever. By the way, make sure you're following our Torres on UK page for all of your late breaking Kentucky news. But we've talked a lot about Kentucky because to me, it's a fascinating situation where for years, all we heard was, Mark Stoops has the best job in America. It's like, no, that isn't one. It's insulting to Mark Stoops. All this, all he has to do is go 6-6. It's insulting to what he and his staff built, but it's also insulting to Kentucky fans because Kentucky fans show up, they show out, they support this team, and they are not getting the results that they deserve. Kentucky fans, to their credit, I don't want to speak for everybody. I don't think most people expect national championships. But what I do think is when Indiana's in the top 10 and Vandy, I don't know if they're in the top 10, but they're, top 15 and in position to make a playoff, there's no reason that Kentucky can't be the same. Well, I bring it up because it is just bad at Kentucky, okay? So like I said, we've talked about it probably more than most shows, but Kentucky right now, coming out of last week, they're 3-4. They have 5 games left. And I think Tennessee was kind of a turning point moment. I'm not saying that anybody expected Kentucky to beat Tennessee, but it was bad. It was really embarrassing. And as a matter of fact, like Matt, you could pop up that stat that I gave you. You want to know how bad things are at Kentucky? Credit to Wildcats' tongue for putting this out on Twitter. I saw it Monday night while I was up watching baseball until 7 a.m. in the morning, 18 innings. This is a wild stat. SEC wins at Kroger Field. That is Kentucky's home field. SEC wins at Kentucky at Kroger Field since November 1st of 2021. Who has the most SEC wins on Kentucky's home field since November 1st, 2021? Tennessee with 3. Kentucky has just 2. Vandy has 2. South Carolina has 2. And Georgia has 2 as well. By the way, that is bad. That is embarrassing. And I think what's especially embarrassing, and I think it's actually a pretty good metaphor for the Mark Stoops era, is that when Mark Stoops had it rolling, Vandy and South Carolina were just 2 guarantees on the schedule. And so the fact that you've now lost to both of those teams back-to-back times at home, and again, the stats are just totally jarring, right? Like I said, they're 0-4, 0-5 in the SEC right now. They are on top of that. They went 1-7 last year. So what is that? 1-12 in the SEC since the start of last year. I've given the stat. They have not won an SEC home game since October. I think it was September 30th of 2021. That was against Florida with Billy Napier, who has since been fired. So it's really bad. So the question becomes, what happens now? And I will say this. I'll give myself a little bit of credit here because I've been on top of this, I think, longer than most. I think there was this belief, and I know we're going to get it in the chat or in the comment section of, you can't fire him. The buyout's too big. And I said, listen, one, I think we've learned in this era of college football, no buyout is too big. And most of them are structured in a way that the school is generally not going to pay the entire buyout, right? LSU's I thought was really interesting. Brian Kelly has no upfront money owed. He's just owed $800,000 every month until they pay out the contract. And it's mitigated if he gets another job. So if he was making $10 million a year at LSU and he makes $5 million a year at his next job, if he decides to coach again, then that's not money LSU has to pay. Mark Stoops' contract is a little bit different. He is owed a ton of money up front. And I think most people felt like there is no way he is going to give up any dollar amount and we're screwed. We're stuck with him, whatever. And what I said was, one, there's always a way with buyouts. But two, I think if you're Mark Stoops, I don't know why you want to show up to work every day where you are absolutely hated and do it for another year or two just because the school doesn't want to pay you or can't afford to pay you. So I've been adamant that I think this is the end of the road for Mark Stoops, that at some point he would realize it's not worth it. Let's get to a negotiated buyout. And it feels like the buzz behind the scenes is starting to get there as well. Look, there's a lot of reporting going on. We talk about being behind a paywall. We don't disrespect all the guys and girls that work hard to get good content. But I know my guy Justin Rowland is all over it. I know some of the people at the Lexington Herald Leader are all over it. But I also did hear an interesting comment from my old buddy, Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio. So I think most people know. I know Matt Jones used to do stuff for KSR, the blog, the website. But Matt Jones and his crew, Drew Franklin, my guy, Ryan Lemon, my guy, they were talking about the situation, and specifically after Tennessee, where Tennessee walks in, they beat your brains in, and it was kind of crazy because it happened at the same time as LSU A&M, where A&M fans took over Baton Rouge and Tennessee fans took over Lexington. But Matt Jones, Drew Franklin, Ryan Lemon talking about the state of Kentucky football and why this thing may actually be coming to an end.
Here's where we are for the future. I know this there's rarely I say certainty, I'll say some certainty. I'd say we're now at 85 to 90% chance we'll have a new coach next year. I think more important than the specifics of the game was kind of how it played out. Specifically, and part of this was because it was raining, and part of this was because it was at night. But the fourth quarter was empty.
Yeah.
You were there. How empty are we talking?
Very empty. Actually, someone sent me a good picture yesterday. It's just unbelievable how the only people there are wearing orange.
The only way it could be different is if, in my opinion, if they were to win if they were to go 6-6, which would mean beating Auburn, Florida, and then either Vandy or Louisville, right? Does anyone on this show disagree with that?
No. If any 6-6.
Do you now think 5-7 also means a change? Because I do.
I do.
I guess I'd have to see who they beat to get those 5 wins.
I don't think the games left on the schedule are that impressive outside of Vandy.
I think the administration has said, let's wait a week and let's see what happens at Auburn. Not that Auburn could save his job, but Auburn could be the final nail, Ryan. That's how I look at it. Do you agree?
Yeah, they go on the road, they get embarrassed, don't play well. I think that would maybe be the final nail in the coffin.
And at which point, then I think they would be completely open to having the discussion of, all right, how do we end this? And starting to have that discussion with Stoops' people. Still, I think the people believe around the program, there's still a way to win 6 games. Now, we can all think that's ridiculous, but when you're in that locker room and you're playing, you can't think it's over.
No.
You still got 5 games to play. And I think they look at it and say, is it insane that we could beat Auburn, Florida, and one of Vandy and Louisville? Well, I mean, I guess it's not insane, right?
It's got a small percentage chance you could pull that off, I guess.
Matt Jones, I thought he did an awesome job laying that out there. And, I'll piggyback a little bit off off of what he said. First of all, I was wrong on the stat. I knew they had played 7 games because they're one of the few teams that has already had both of their byes. For some reason, I thought they were 3-4. They're 2-5, 0-5 in the SEC. And so what Matt said is basically, I think, exactly right, is that he did the interview with Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman a few weeks ago where he said 3-9 is not good enough, 4-8 is not good enough, 5-7 maybe you can talk yourself into it, and 6-6 he's good. And I think he even changed that opinion of we got to get to 6-6 if we're having a serious conversation. Couple things. The issue with getting to 6-6 is pretty straightforward. I just don't see the scenario where this team goes 4-1 down the stretch. They're coming off. Listen, I think what's interesting about the state of Kentucky is a few things. One, they easily could have beat Texas. So if we're going to criticize Mark Stoops for everything, we have to acknowledge that they should have beaten Texas. And I think what's kind of interesting about Kentucky specifically is that they finally figured out the quarterback. Cutter Boley is awesome. The issue is the defense. All of a sudden, the defense can't stop anybody. By the way, I did have the over in that game. I think Tennessee hit the over by itself. But I just bring it up because what gives you confidence that, I think Matt's right. Yeah, if you go 5-1 from here or 4-1 from here and you finish at 6-6 overall, then yeah, you deserve to keep your job because you're going to have the wins needed for someone to feel like there is actually momentum going into next year. The issue is I just don't see the wins. Now, listen, Auburn this week, Auburn's struggling. Auburn is not playing well, but I do think there is a glimmer of hope. And I do think the point that Matt brought up was a good point. I'm kind of the belief, like if Auburn loses to Kentucky this weekend, I think there's a chance Hugh Freeze is out Sunday. We're doing an emergency reaction show Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. I don't think that's the case for Mark Stoops. I think there's too much built-in equity with Mitch Barnhart where they'll at least give him the self-respect to finish the season. But at the same time, if you're 2-5 right now, you have 0 SEC wins, and outside of the Texas game, it wasn't even competitive. Where do we feel confident that these wins are going to come? And by the way, I think Matt laid it out perfectly. Like Auburn is winnable. I don't think they're going to win it. They're a 10-point underdog according to Circa. But Auburn, I think, sort of maybe found their quarterback with Ashton Daniels last week. If you didn't watch the game, Jackson Arnold gets benched. The defense is incredible as always, and the Ashton Daniels kid, the backup, played really well. Even if you beat Auburn, you still got Florida. Okay, even if you beat Florida, you got Tennessee Tech, and then you close with 2 really good teams. Now, to Matt's point, if you beat Vandy, if you beat Louisville, then all of a sudden there's actual momentum. The issue is we have seen no reason to believe that this team can beat Vandy or Louisville, especially on the road. And I'll take it a step further. I haven't seen enough to make me believe that they'll beat Auburn this weekend, even though Auburn is struggling. And so I just bring it up. It's a fascinating set of circumstances. And I'll stick to what I have said since like week 3. I remember week 3, week 2, whenever Kentucky played Ole Miss, I remember talking about this on this show. I said, I believe in my heart of hearts that it's over for Mark Stoops. And by the end of the year, we will get to a point where he's ready to negotiate a buyout. And I know a Kentucky fan said he's not going to give back a single dollar. What I just come back to is a couple things. Is one, listen, I don't know all the guy's financial situation, and I'm not trying to be funny when I say this. I do know that he went through a very public divorce, so I understand that, probably had to write a big check when that happened. The guy is not broke, okay? And the guy is not whatever. And so I just don't think that you are going to force the school to pay you every dollar as the contract stipulates, with 2 reasons why. One is, do you want to show up every day to a place where everybody hates you? And to be clear, I'm not criticizing Kentucky fans for being frustrated with Mark Stoops. It's been 3 or 4 years of an absolute downturn, no reason for hope. We talked about it a few weeks ago, like the recruiting rankings are in the tank. They're going to have to go back into the portal. Like, it's kind of a train wreck if we're being perfectly honest, even behind the scenes. So there's no reason for hope. Are you going to show up to a job where nobody wants you there? He looks so defeated in these press conferences every week. Nobody's working harder to get this thing figured out. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I don't think he's really working that hard to figure it out. I think he knows that he's in a no-win situation. The other reason that I think he has to consider a negotiated buyout, I understand you want every dollar that's owed to you, but do you want to tarnish your legacy where you will one day get a statue if you just keep your mouth shut and take a little bit less money? Like, this isn't Brian Kelly at LSU. Everybody at LSU hates Brian Kelly. It will go down as one of the least happy times of most LSU fans' lifetime was watching Brian Kelly coach football. We got a lot of Kentucky fans in the chat. I'll let you guys and girls tell me if I'm wrong on this. I don't think Kentucky fans will hate Mark Stoops if he does the right thing and announces a separation after this year. Where I do think Kentucky fans would hate him and where I do think his legacy would get hurt is if he decides I'm not leaving till I get every penny. And if you can't afford to pay me, well, guess what? You're bringing me back for 2026. Then you're talking about a situation where you either stayed when you're not wanted or, bankrupt is a little bit of an exaggerated term, but you're basically going to bankrupt the athletic department. For people who don't know, Mark Stoops is owed essentially his entire buyout within 60 days. Again, this is not a Brian Kelly. You pay it out over 6, 7, 8 years. This is like you pay it out over 6, 7, 8 weeks. And we know that no school, especially a school like Kentucky, is going to be able to do that. And so I just bring it up because I don't know what Mark Stoops is going to do, but two things feel very clear to me. I don't think enough is going to happen for him to keep the job. Listen, maybe you steal a game against either Vandy or Louisville, but even if you do, are we working under the assumption that you're going to Auburn on the road at night and getting a win against maybe the best defense in the SEC? I don't know that I could work under that assumption. Are you working under the assumption that I know Florida has struggled? They have an interim head coach and they lost the last time that they came to Kroger Field. But are we working under the assumption that you're beating Florida? Because that's the whole thing. Even if you get either the win against Vandy or the win against Louisville, you have to still beat Florida and Auburn to even put yourself in position where the Vandy game and Louisville games matter. So I don't think it's going to happen, and we'll see what happens with Mark Stoops. I'm fascinated because to me, I think he has a very clear decision to make. He has to come up, and it's funny. I was talking to somebody who knows him a little bit on, I guess it would have been Monday after the Tennessee loss. And I said to him, listen, I'm not advising him, but you can give him my number, tell him to call me. Because I said, look, bottom line is this, is if I was advising him, this is what I would tell Mark Stoops. I would tell him straight up. I'd say, pick a number, whatever the number is. I think he's owed $38 million, $15 million, $20 million, and figure out a number that isn't the full buyout and doesn't make the school pay it within 60 days and renegotiate that thing. Because if you want to have any credibility in that state, if you want to go down as beloved rather than hated, you cannot accept every dollar of that buyout, right? And so to me, it's like he has two paths. He can fight for every dollar and be hated for the rest of his life in a place that he should be loved. Or he can come up with a number. He can renegotiate the buyout so he doesn't bankrupt the athletic department. And then from there, guess what? You're going to get a statue. Whatever businesses you want to operate in the state of Kentucky, you're going to be able to do that. I know he has some bourbon, whatever. I don't know if he owns a company or a distillery or a restaurant or whatever. You're going to be a legend in Kentucky if you just step away. But what you can't do is take every dollar, try to force the school to pay you every dollar and force the school to do it on the terms of the contract. Because if you do, you're going to ruin your legacy. So we'll see what happens. I stand by what I said. I think Mark Stoops, to his credit, I don't think he'll be fired before the end of the season. I think Mitch Barnhart will give him the benefit of the doubt. But in my opinion, I think at the end of the season, what he should do, hold a press conference. Listen, we set a standard at this place that's never been met in this era. I'm proud of what we built, but it's time to hand it over to somebody else. Then guess what? You walk out with your dignity, you get your statue, and oh, by the way, you also get, to live your life, you get to enjoy your money, and you get to stay being a legend in Kentucky, which is what he should be and what his legacy should be as well. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, we will talk a little bit about college hoops. Arkansas, big win. We'll discuss that, as well as a couple other things that came up over the last couple of days in the world of college hoops. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Cauley Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Cauley Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Cauley Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, There's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to Caulipuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, Caulipuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. 1 bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. Caulipuffs.com gets you 15% off. Caulipuffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but Caulipuffs.com, Caulipuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Caulipuffs. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. We'll get to some college hoops in a minute. Want to get to a couple of your questions, but while we're on the topic of Kentucky, I'm tripping over my own words. I'm going to be coming to the state of Kentucky soon, and that is because they have the hottest new sports book out east. It is the new Circa Sportsbook at Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. Okay, so I've told you all about Circa. They are official hotel and casino partners of the Aaron Torres pod. And when I'm in Vegas, and I'll be there next week for Florida, Arizona, BYU, Villanova, when I'm in Vegas, there is no place I love hanging out more than Circa. But here's the crazy part. I know all of you can't get to Vegas. Well, guess what? When you are back east, in Kentucky, in Tennessee, right around that region, guess what? Circa has opened up a brand new sports book at Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. This is right on the Kentucky-Tennessee border, not far from Nashville, about 30, 35 minutes from Nashville. And this is the best place to watch games, right? Maybe you're a Kentucky fan and you want to watch anything but Kentucky football on Saturday. Maybe you're a Vol fan and you can't get into Neyland Stadium this weekend against Oklahoma, so you need a place to watch the game. What you got to do, go to Mint Kentucky Downs, Franklin, Kentucky, and the Circa Sportsbook there. All the hospitality. This is a replica sportsbook to the world's largest sportsbook in Las Vegas. And oh, by the way, you know what the great part about Circa is? I'm going to be there soon doing live shows. So if you want to meet Torres in person, we'll try to set something up. I can't promise everything. I don't know what Circa has in mind, but check it out. Mint Kentucky Downs, Franklin, Kentucky. I will be down there during college hoop season at some point, and we very much appreciate Circa's support. Speaking of Kentucky, not only is the beautiful Circa Sportsbook there, but so are the Kentucky Wildcats. We were just talking Mark Pope and his future. And so let's go ahead and get to a couple just comments about the state of Kentucky with Mark Stoops before we switch gears to basketball. Kentucky Outdoors Life. I've told fans last year and this year to stop going to games until he's gone. Enough is enough with Mark, and it's time to go. I think that's the tough part. Kentucky fans, listen, I think it's one of the most loyal football fan bases in college football. Forget basketball. We all know about basketball. But like, I go back to, I still vividly remember that Ole Miss game in week 2, week 3, whatever it was, where Ole Miss walks into town, and that place, I believe it was a stripe out. It was part blue, part white, but every single seat was filled. And it was like, Ole Miss had their little section, but it was all Kentucky fans. And they showed up ready to go, trying to will their team to victory. And it was just like, the team didn't show up. Well, the team actually played well that game. It was Mark Stoops that butchered the timeouts, butchered the clock at the end of the half, whatever. Kentucky fans are amazing, and they have shown so much support to that team. And I just, I don't know what else there is. I don't want to pile on Mark Stoops, but I feel bad for the fans. They deserve better. That program is in a rut. And I think the thing is, too, I think with all these other SEC teams, even the ones that are struggling, they've either fired their coach or there's reason for hope and excitement, right? Vandy might not make the playoff, but they clearly have the right coach. Tennessee might not make the playoff, but they clearly have the right coach. South Carolina, I know it's a struggle, but they won 9 games a year ago. Kentucky, it's been a 3 or 4 year downward trend. Kentucky Outdoors Life says just stop showing up to games. I give Kentucky fans credit for continuing to show up because I know for darn certain that I would not if that was my team. 1 or 2 other more. We'll talk some hoops. Luke says, Cutter Boley angle is interesting. If he is gone, is he gone if you fire Stoops? I realize you can't make a decision based on that, but it can't be overlooked. I think what makes it unique, it was funny, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's from Kentucky, who's a UK fan on Monday. We did a little deep dive on Cutter Boley. By the way, from the same hometown as Abraham Lincoln. I know Kentucky fans knew that. Torres did not know that. Abraham Lincoln's birthplace is where Cutter Boley is from. I think it's different because he's a Kentucky guy. Like I know DJ Lagway has said all of the right things about being a Florida Gator, but I think if Florida butchers this coaching search, DJ Lagway is going to look at options, because he's not from Florida. He has no affiliation there, where I think Cutter Boley is more likely to stay. Now, I think, couple things here. One, you could hire a coach that he just doesn't like. I think there's a possibility, though not likely, that you hire a coach that's bringing a quarterback with him. I'll give you a little inside baseball right now. I don't think it applies to Kentucky specifically, but Brian Hartline is the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. I don't know if this is supposed to get out there, but I have been told that he is basically shopping himself as a package deal of like, I'm going to bring some guys from Ohio State with me if you hire me, including a high-profile quarterback, whatever. And so, there's a possibility that the new guy just brings his own quarterback. I mean, I haven't thought that much about it. Will Stein, the offensive coordinator at Oregon, does he know that there's a backup quarterback if Dante Moore that doesn't go pro this year that would want to enter the transfer portal? I believe Austin Novostad is the backup there. So I think there's a lot of variables. My hunch would be Cutter Boley would wait to see who the next head coach is. I think the head coach would be crazy to run him off unless he was certain that he wasn't the guy, because I think Cutter Boley is going to try to be loyal if the new coach is loyal to him. Is that the best decision for him? That's kind of up to him. But I think he's going to be loyal if at all possible. For people who don't know, Cutter Boley is the starting quarterback at Kentucky. He's actually been awesome. Totally outplayed Arch Manning a few weeks ago. Was great against Tennessee a few days ago. Unfortunately, as I said a minute ago, the Kentucky defense is letting them down. One more question if we have one, Matt. Then we will talk some college hoops. Let's get to this. Dead Messenger says, Kentucky was hoping A&M took him and still hoping somebody else will take him. Glad the A&M fan base had a you-know-what fit over it. Gig 'em. So Dead Messenger is apparently an A&M fan. I said this on the Sunday show. I said the real MVPs of Texas A&M season, it's not Mike Elko, it's not Marcel Reed, it's Texas A&M fans that basically just said, no, we're not letting you hire Mark Stoops, and we are going to revolt, and we will not give money, and we will not show up if Mark Stoops is the next head coach. I don't think it'll ever get made. That would be a great, short documentary, hour-long documentary, whatever. David Nuno at Texags, my man. Let's start working on that one, because that would be that is a great, especially if Elko makes the playoff this year and then continues to have success into the future. That becomes one of the great hypothetical what ifs ever of Texas A&M basically going, no disrespect, Kentucky fans, but it's the truth, going right back into that cycle of overpaid, older coach, doesn't want to recruit, Jimbo wanted to recruit, so that's probably not fair. But Jimbo was clearly past his prime, blueprint that didn't work. Mark Stoops is the same. And credit Texas A&M fans, because, if they don't throw a fit the way they did, maybe Mark Stoops is the head coach there. And maybe it's as bad at Texas A&M as it feels like it is at Kentucky right now. All right, let's switch gears. Let's wrap. Charles. Charles wants to talk basketball. By the way, if you're an Arkansas fan, make sure to follow Torres on the Hogs. We have a great intern who helps me run that page, Torres on the Hogs. Thank you to Charles for asking a very simple question. Can anything stop the Big Pig invasion? Well, I'll tell you what, through 2 games of an exhibition slate, I don't know if anyone can stop the Big Pig invasion, because, let me put it this way. So Seth Davis works for CBS. He and I have had a rocky relationship behind the scenes. I like him, but, he's done some stuff, whatever. I thought he said it best on Twitter, though. He said, you don't want to overreact to exhibitions, but there are times where you don't want to underreact either. And I don't think it is an underreaction to say that Arkansas has absolutely looked awesome. And so we don't want to overreact, but Arkansas goes to Memphis, true road game where there are obviously a lot of Hogs fans there, and they laid a whooping on the Memphis Tigers on Monday night. Final score at FedEx Forum. Final score in that game was, 99-74. Why am I not able? 99-75. 99-75 was the final score. So to Charles's question, can anything stop the Big Pig invasion? Listen, we don't we don't get too over our skis with the big pig invasions in October. But it doesn't look like much can stop this team. Let's go ahead and dive into this game because Arkansas fans, I know you are fired up about this one. First of all, you know what the crazy part about this game was? So you go back to Friday. So Friday, Arkansas plays an exhibition game, right? They destroy Cincinnati at home. I actually shout out to the Arkansas fan who DM'd me and said, Torres, I came to your page looking for content on Saturday morning. It wasn't there. I'm pissed off. Well, you're getting it right now. But the Cincinnati game, you take care of business, okay? Start to finish, total. I used the term the other day, BTA, belt to ass. Like, it was just a butt kicking of epic proportions. What's crazy about Arkansas winning this game on Monday night against Memphis, final score 99-75, they actually did not play that well. That is the wild part of this game. Or I take that back. I don't want to say that they did not play well. They did not play well early in that game. It was funny. Wife is a Dodgers fan. We had the Dodgers on the big screen. I was watching this on a small screen. I tweeted out a picture. Arkansas was down like 12, 14 points when I tweeted it out. And I think at one point they were down by as much as, 15 points in the first half, I believe. And it speaks to a couple things. And even to backtrack, I'm not trying to be negative, glasses half empty, but it reminded me of last year, right? Where it was like for the first 8 to 12 weeks of the season with Arkansas, it was like one step forward, 2 steps back. Last year, Arkansas destroys Kansas in an exhibition to open the season, then immediately goes on the road at TCU and loses. So I'm like, is this what Arkansas is going to be again? Are we going to do this for the first month, Cal? Or can we go BTA and do it to Memphis as well? And the answer was, yeah, they did. And so what stood out about this game, we're not going to go through exhibitions from last year, but I do want to talk about Monday night. You know what stood out about this game? Arkansas has some dogs in its freshman class, okay? And I thought it was really interesting because I was one of many. Now, I liked Arkansas coming into the year, and I did say in the lead up to the season when the AP poll came out, I said Arkansas is not the 14th best team, wildly underrated. But to me, it was more about the fact that it was the returning players, right? DJ Wagner's back. Trevin Brazile is back. Carter Knox could very conceivably have been drafted in the NBA draft, and Billy Richmond, Mr. Energy, is back as well. And I thought that was kind of the X factor for Arkansas. John Rothstein has all the stats. He did a great job of tweeting it out, but they return by a pretty significant margin the most production in the SEC. And so I thought this season is going to be about DJ Wagner and Trevin Brazile making the next step and all of that. So far through 2 exhibitions, it's about the freshmen. And again, what was so impressive about Monday night, they didn't play well in the first half. And you know who actually carried them in the first half? Malik Thomas. Malik Thomas was absolutely awesome in this game. Now, Darius Acuff, as you can see on the screen, was phenomenal as well. But I thought what was interesting about this game was that early on, when Arkansas needed a steadying hand, you know who provided it for him? Malik Thomas, true freshman, McDonald's All-American. Finished this game with 23 points, 3 of 7 from 3. Arkansas fans, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but all 3 threes, I think, came in the first half when they were trailing, when they needed buckets. I think 2 of the 3 did. 1 came in the second half, okay? But Malik Thomas was the guy that stepped up. And then in the second half, Darius Acuff was awesome as well, as you can see on the screen. 17 points in this game to go along with 4 rebounds, 7 assists. He was the star of the game the other night against Cincinnati. He takes control of this game late. Malik Thomas takes control of this game early. And the freshmen were absolutely awesome, okay? And so that's what stood out. Now, listen, I saw Kentucky or an Arkansas fan tweet at me, and I thought it was interesting. I don't know that I agree. He said, last year's stars are now this year's role players. I don't know if I would go that far. I don't think Carter Knox is going to end up being a role player, but I do think it's something to be said of in their first 2 appearances as college basketball players, Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas were absolutely awesome. The other thing that stood out, Cal, I give him credit, man. Listen, I think he's changed a lot of what he has done in program building. Listen, I'm not here to criticize anyone, Cal, Kentucky fans, whatever. But at the end of Kentucky, it was like he's holding on to this one and done thing and the sport's going in a different direction. And why are you doing this, Cal? Whatever. And I think what he has clearly bet on is a few things. I'm going to bet on NBA upside in the backcourt and the wings. You can't find a Darius Acuff in the portal. You just can't. But what you also can't find in the high school ranks is big, physical, low post guys. And so last week he said, If you don't have a low post presence, you cannot win in basketball. And he said, like, you don't have to dump the ball down like it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1978, but if you don't have a low post presence, you cannot win in this era. And so the other thing that stood out was late in the game when Arkansas needed plays, they just crashed the boards and Memphis had no answers. And I think there's something to be said about, like, I understand all these schools, you know, everybody wants to run the modern offense and all 3-point shooting and all 5 guys got to be able to shoot. There's something to be said, and Cal has said this, about a guy that you can throw the ball to and you're going to get 2 or you're going to get to the foul line, and being able to get a big rebound when you need to. And of course, part of that comes from last year with the way things ended against Texas Tech. Well, outside of Malik Thomas and outside of Darius Acuff, you know who was the most impressive player to me? Malik Ewan. This was the transfer from Florida State, finished this game with 15 points to go along with 7 rebounds, with 4 rebounds in this game. But there was 3 or 4 plays where they just needed a bucket. He's cutting to the rim. He's posted in the paint. He gets the ball, boom, 2 points, or he's going to the foul line. And so I actually think this is a very nice blend of, again, high upside freshmen to go along with the big physical low post players. And the best part is, I don't think Arkansas, who put up 99 points on Monday night on the road, by the way, has come anywhere close to their ceiling. Like I said, you know, Carter Knox is not a role player. Carter Knox was a preseason All-SEC kind of guy, and a guy that I think is right up there with Otega Oweh as the best returning player in the SEC and a potential All-SEC, SEC Player of the Year type candidate. Well, he was fine on Monday night. He wasn't great, 10 points. And that's the crazy part. Arkansas put up 99 points, and I would argue, I don't know if he's their best player, but one of their 2 or 3 best players, one of the 2 or 3 guys that could be a first-round pick this year, didn't play that well. And so when I look at this Arkansas team, 2 things stand out. One is just the number of guys that can beat you. Again, Malik Thomas was good on Friday, but not great. Well, he was great on Monday when they needed him to. Darius Acuff struggled early after being great on Friday night. Darius Acuff was great late. And then you have the low post presence. And again, a guy like Carter Knox hasn't even gotten going. DJ Wagner hasn't even gotten going. There are so many guys on this roster that can beat you. And so when I look at this Arkansas team, what stands out is the 2 things that I've been talking about really since this roster came together late April, early May. I guess it would have been late May when Carter Knox officially announced he was coming back. Is one, you can just tell by the way John Calipari has acted all offseason that he believes this is one of his best teams. And, you know, I'll be honest, this might be his best chance to make a real run at another national championship. And I know it's October. It's stupid to talk national championships, but the combination of college vets, second, third year in a system with high upside freshmen, it's not going to get much better than this. But I've been telling you since May, just look at how he's scheduling. At Michigan State early in the year. How often does Coach Cal play true road games in the non-conference? Basically never. Duke on a neutral. Texas Tech on a neutral. I mean, the way he's scheduling, Louisville at home, I know was part of the ACC, SEC challenge, so that's a little bit different. The way he's scheduling makes it so obvious that he believes in this team and what they're capable of. And so to me, Matt, if you can pull up Luke's comment to lead the chat. It was the comment about this being Cal's most talented team since 2015. You know, I said this the other day, and I had Kentucky. Are you comparing Arkansas to a team that went 38-1 and won 38 games to open the season? No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is this team probably has the deepest group of players that Cal has had since 2015. I know there was a bunch of NBA players. Luke, you didn't delete that comment, did you? Luke, at some point in the chat, Luke said something about this was Calipari's most talented team since 2015. But we talked about it last week. Matt, I apologize. I thought I saw it in the chat. Maybe, listen, like I said, I was up till 4 a.m. watching the Dodgers play the Blue Jays on Monday night. So maybe I missed that in the chat. But like I said this the other day, after Pro Day, I talked to NBA people that were like, that's Cal's most talented team in a long time. Now, again, I know Kentucky fans are going, 2015, we had 9 pro. Like, I don't know how many guys are going to play in the NBA. It's no longer in this era of college basketball about NBA dudes. Like, it's not just about having the most NBA talent. It's about having a balance of young, veteran, this, that, the other thing. And I don't think you could watch that team on Monday night and not say, man, They got a lot of guys that can beat you. They're super physical. They're super athletic. Now, the one thing I will say, we're going to find out quick on Arkansas. They play at Michigan State the first Saturday of the college basketball season. By the way, I have zero pull at Fox TV. I believe that's a Fox national TV game on a Saturday night. Arkansas at Michigan State, so I cannot wait. I'll tell you what, Arkansas fans, you know what you need to do. You need to go to SeatGeek.com and use promo code Torres to get you $20 off a purchase. First purchase gets you $20 off with promo code Torres, because you need some tickets to games, because I think there's going to be a lot of fun games for Razorback fans. But I'm just here to tell you, man, that team is so deep. And I thought even just these 2 exhibition games, if you can't see that they have all the tools in the toolbox. Now, it's on Cal. It's on the players to deliver. But it's like good. I've watched all these teams, okay? I thought Kentucky looked unreal against Purdue. I thought Kansas looked way better than I thought. There is nobody that I have seen. Kentucky, I think, is the other one. The size, the physicality, the athleticism. And I think the way they were able on Monday night to just, like I said, turn a 13, 14, 15-point deficit into basically a tie game. It was tied until there was a foul right before the half. And then they just blew them out in the second half. And I think Memphis is a good team. I'm not going to sit here and make proclamations about them, but I think they're probably a top 35-ish team in college basketball. I think they're the equivalent of a middle-tier SEC team. And Arkansas made it non-competitive in the first half. I cannot wait to watch this team. This team is going to be so fun. So many guys that can beat you. And again, I can just see with Cal's post-game comments and whatever, he is comfortable. He believes in this team. You can tell when he likes a team. And this is clearly one. I'll be really quick on a couple other exhibition results. Duke, listen, man. You talk about teams that are hard not to like. I know everybody hates Duke, but they went to Thompson-Boling Arena on Sunday night. This was during the Brian Kelly firing. As a matter of fact, I went back and watched the game on Monday, and you can see Tom Hart and Jimmy Dykes react in real time to Brian Kelly being fired. But I got to tell you, man, it was a great game. It was an entertaining game, and there are 2 takeaways. One, I actually think Tennessee looked better than I thought they would. But 2, Duke is again the real deal. And listen, we know what it's about. Cam Boozer, unbelievable in this game. 24 points, 23 rebounds. I believe it would have been a Duke record if that had been a regular season game. And I think what was crazy is if you watch the game, Tennessee has 2 grown men in the paint in Jalen Carey and Felix Okpara. And Cam Boozer went for 24 and 23 in that game. And so when I look at Duke, I got to be honest, man. I was a little bit late to the Duke party last year. I looked at them and said, they got some nice pieces, but they're relying a lot on freshmen. I'm not going to make the same mistake again this year. Yes, they have freshmen. They actually have more returning players than they did a year ago, but I only bring it up because my phone's blown up. I don't know if somebody just got fired. I don't know if Hugh Freeze just got fired. I got like 4 texts in a row. My apologies. But I'm not going to be late on Duke again. I know they have freshmen, but they have a lot of guys who are back. Isaiah Evans is back. He looked pretty good. Caleb Foster, I thought, looked very good as the lead point guard. But that game was about Cam Boozer because, the thing that stood out, he's just so physical. Even when he misses, even when somebody misses, he just goes and gets it. And then when he goes back up, he's got guys hanging on him, and he's just ripping through them to get to the basket. I think Duke is really good. I think probably a week ago, I would have had Louisville winning the ACC. I can't. You go to Thompson-Boling Arena, and that's another game. Both teams were playing to win the game. I sound like Herm Edwards. Yeah, play to win the game. Both teams were playing to win. This wasn't, we're going to sit our starters in the second half. Tennessee, I thought, did look actually very good. Jacoby Gillespie's good. I really like the Israeli backup guard, Ethan Berg. Shout out to any Tennessee fan in the chat that maybe remembers that name. I thought he looked really good. And the front court is good as well. Nate Ament did struggle a little bit. I thought he got a little two-shot happy at times. He'll figure it out. But it is clear they are putting him into that Dalton Connect, Chaz Lanier role and saying, go cook. But Duke gets the win. Duke looks really good, people. By the way, by the end of the week, maybe next Monday. I'm thinking, by the way, Monday, I'm going to be in Vegas for the 2 doubleheader. We might do a live show Monday morning. We'll see what happens. Bring it up to very simply say at some point I'm going to have my Final Four national championship picks. I like both those teams a lot. Really quickly, another team I like a lot. I'm going to spend half a second on this. Arizona played Emory-Riddle on Monday night. Matt found the logo. Shout out to Matt. Emory-Riddle is quite literally an aviation school, okay? So I'm not going to react to Arizona beating down a bunch of future Southwest and JetBlue pilots. No disrespect. Great, commendable jobs. We all need somebody to fly us places, okay? Arizona, they won 113-142. I'm not going to talk about the game. All I'm going to talk about is I think Arizona is the most undervalued team coming into college basketball this year. 3 really good freshmen. You know, it was such a dumb conversation. But I remember during the spring, it was like, oh, you know, Arizona, I don't know how not from us. We know what we're talking about. But I remember this conversation in the spring of like, well, you know, they're not being very aggressive in the portal. It's like, yeah, because they have 2 top 15 picks coming in the freshman class. And I'm sorry, you can't get anybody in the portal better than Koa Pete. You probably can't get a guard better than Braden Burries. So I'm sorry, but that's why they didn't go heavy in the portal. But they also have the veterans to kind of get them going. Jaden Bradley is awesome. Toby Awaka, speaking of Tennessee Vols, he's a former Tennessee Vols, a former Tennessee Vol. And then you saw it on the screen there, Ivan Kravachev. I apologize. I'll learn that name here in the coming week because I will be at Arizona versus Florida in a week from now. But I'm telling you what, Arizona actually opened as an underdog against Florida in that game. I may have to swing by the Circus Sportsbook on Monday morning and place a wager. I think Arizona is underrated. Again, we're not going to overreact to them beating a bunch of future JetBlue pilots, but it was an impressive win. By the way, exhibition on Tuesday night. I think it is live on local TV. You might have to pay to watch it. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Michigan State at UConn. So I know we got a lot of Arkansas fans in the chat. If you want a good preview of Michigan State, they're playing at UConn on Monday. UConn will be without starting center Torres Reed, but the counter to that is Silas Demery, the starting point guard, is back. All right, Matt, any last comments before we get out of here? Anything interesting in the chat? I don't know if anybody, you know, I don't know what people are talking about now, but let's take a quick look. Okay, so Adam is a Florida fan. Sorry, I just saw this one, Matt. I'll pop this one up really quick. Whether Cal has it or not, Florida is still better and deeper. Totally disagree. I've said I think, you know, Kentucky and Arkansas are the 2 best teams in the SEC to me. I like Florida as a very clear 3rd team. I'm a little lower on them than most. Now, I tweeted that out. Florida fans got mad at me. They quickly got happy because then I was one of the first people to say Billy Napier is getting fired after the Mississippi State game. But I bring it up to very simply say they were not happy with me. I may have heard from some people in the athletic department saying, Torres, just wait and watch. I love Todd Golden. I trust Todd Golden. I think the guards are a work in progress. I think it's Kentucky, Arkansas 1-2, Florida 3. But we'll see. Games get played soon. We get to figure it all out. And the cool thing is all these teams play early, right? Florida plays opening night against Arizona. Arkansas, first Saturday against Michigan State. Kentucky, second Tuesday of the year against Louisville. I think it's November 11th for that game. So we'll see what happens from there. Matt, I cut you off in the comments, so let's go ahead and get to some of the other comments. William Sweeney. Isn't Dabo Sweeney's real first name William? Is Dabo Sweeney in the chat right now? Is Dabo Sweeney in the chat right now? I think Dabo Sweeney might be in the chat right now. Dabo Sweeney's birth name is William Christopher Dabo Sweeney. Dabo, are you in the chat right now? Listen, if you want another job besides Clemson, this might be the right time to do it. Because Florida and LSU and all these schools aren't going to be able to hire somebody that makes them happy. So, Dabo, if you want out of Clemson, this might be the time. If this isn't Dabo and he just wants to talk about Memphis, listen, what is the hype with Memphis? They aren't preseason top 25. I still think, listen, if you watch that game, and again, you don't want to overreact to preseason, but you don't want to underreact. Memphis was picked to win the AAC or the American. John Summerall got mad at me yesterday for calling it the AAC when it now goes by the American. But they're a good team. Might not be a great team, but they're a good team. And you went on the road, and it wasn't even competitive in the second half. And so, William / Dabo, if that is your real name, I like the thing with that game is that I think that, like, to me, Memphis is equivalent of a middle of the tier SEC team. So, like, if Arkansas went on the road in their and I know they play Tennessee at home in their SEC opener, but let's say they went on the road in their SEC opener and they beat Vandy by 24 points. We'd be like, oh, that's a nice win. They beat Oklahoma by 24 points. Oh, that's a nice win. So we got to give them credit because I think Memphis is about a middle-of-the-tier SEC team. They got some good players. Doug McDaniel's really good. Curtis Givens is a really nice player as well. And so, yeah, I think we can give them credit without totally overreacting or underreacting as well. Anything else, Matt, before we go ahead and get out of here? Scalise says, Malik is so good. We haven't had a shooter like him in a while. He was awesome. Monday night, he really carried that team. I give him a ton of credit. You know, he just looked the part. And like I said, you know, with the freshmen, I think it's a little bit hyperbolic to say that the freshmen, you know, again, I had the Arkansas fan tell me the freshmen are the stars. Last year's stars are the role players. I still think Carter Knox is going to be the best player, you know, one of the better players in the SEC. But man, oh man, do those freshmen look good. All right, I'll tell you what. I think it's time for us to get out of here. I appreciate everybody's support. I see Kentucky Door Wildlife says he's already getting ready for Arkansas versus Kentucky at Bud Walton on January 31st. Going back to football. So we got some Florida fans in here. Billy Napier might take the UAB gig. Billy Napier is free for Kentucky. You know, I don't know if we'll ever do it. It would be fun to do like the play down the road game. Okay, Kentucky hires John Summerall. Let's just say hypothetically. By the way, we interviewed John Summerall on Monday. If you missed that, go back and listen. But Kentucky hires John Summerall. Who would then end up at Tulane? Would it be Coach O? Would it be Billy Napier? Billy Napier for UAB. I'll tell you this, like, I think if Billy Napier was willing to not name, if he was willing to hire a real play caller, I think Billy Napier still knows what he's doing. He can't call plays. The thing with Billy Napier, I go back to, I said this when he got fired. The best comment that I heard on Billy Napier was, you know, he had a $8 million a year head coaching job. The problem was he wanted to be an OC. I thought that was true. It's like, you know, you look at all these coaches. It's like, I don't know. I'm rambling. I think it's time to get out of here. If you're not subscribed to the show, make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure that you're subscribed. Rate, review the show. Give us a quick 5 stars. We appreciate your support. SeatGeek.com. Promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com. Promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. And oh, by the way, on top of that, never forget also that Circus Sportsbook is our hotel casino partner. We appreciate their support. I'll be out there for the games in Vegas next week. And oh, by the way, I'll be making it to Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky here very soon. Also, Collypuffs.com. Always got to shout them out. Promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. Time for me to go. Appreciate your support. Maybe a Wednesday morning show. There's a lot going on in the world of college football, so we might have to do a Wednesday morning show. We'll see. I'll report back to you Wednesday morning. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. I'll be back. Darren says, thank you for another great show. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Luke, thank you. By the way, you can see at the top of the chat, Luke did become an official Torres superfan today. We do have a membership tier, $4.99 a month. You know, we're going to do some stuff for members of this show. We appreciate you guys. It's $4.99 a month. It's basically the equivalent of a beer at happy hour. And you support this show. You help me and producer Matt travel around the country. We're going to be traveling a lot over the next couple months. So if you want to support the show, there is a membership platform. All you got to do is click join. You can do it there. Appreciate your support. Time to go. We're out. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. I'll be back.